everyone. Welcome back to the Israel Connection. I'm Esti Zenati, and I have two guests today. My first guest is Cantor Emily Ellentuck. She is the current director of Bethel's Berman-Lipavsky Religious School. And the second guest is Rina Liebeskind. She is the education director at Kol Ami Synagogue in Tucson, Arizona. So hi, ladies. Thank you for joining me today.
Shalom.
Hi, Esti.
So can each of you tell us a little bit about yourselves and what you do in your role currently?
Would you like to go first?
Emily, you can go first.
Sure. I am the religious school director at Bethel's Berman-Lipavsky Religious School, a religious school for kindergarten through 7th grade children. And we also have madrichim in 8th grade through 12th grade and a new teen program for 8th through 12th grade so that we can extend Jewish education to our teenagers.
All right. Rina?
And I am the director of education at Kol Ami. It's a Reform synagogue. We have preschool through high school, all of the above. I am actually the director for the entire synagogue. So from preschool to really like JLL, what we call is the Jewish Lifelong Learning. And in the school itself, we have preschool through 10th grade, sometimes 11th graders. We also have madrichim program and a program that starts what we call the little fishers, the little guys.
Oh.
Yes.
So, Emily, what drew you into Jewish education to begin with, and especially working with kids?
So I started working in Jewish education right my freshman year of high school. I was in Tucson, Arizona, and I came the first week of religious school at Congregation Or Hadash, which was one of the congregations in Tucson, Arizona at the time. And I went from being a madricha to a teacher, and I continued teaching during high school and then through college. In college, I earned a degree in elementary education and Jewish studies and continued teaching in day school and working in Jewish summer camps during the summer. And then to Bethel, I mean, Jewish education has always been a part of my life, and I've had influences of many family members also in Jewish education.
Wow. And Rina, what about you?
My career in education also started at a very early age. I would say that I knew I would be an educator from my early years just from my family life. I'm the oldest of 6 children, and I helped take care of my youngest sibling. So I already had that connection with educating and being a person in charge. Before my army service, I worked at Vito, a daycare for children in Jerusalem. And when I arrived in Tucson, the first job I was looking for is preschool at the Jewish Community Center. Started as an assistant, moved up to teacher, then moved on to director of programmings, and then I moved on to director of education. I taught high school and middle school Hebrew. The whole time it was always education, and my formal education is a master's in Jewish executive master degree in Jewish educational leadership.
Wow. That's
And
really
Esti, I'll also mention that in a couple of different places, both at the JCC and at Kol Ami, Rina and I had the pleasure of working together when I was living in Arizona. So that's our connection.
I figured based on the location she used to work at, I kind of connected the dots. All right. So what do you guys think is the most important value that every Jewish school should uphold?
To me, the most important is that there is a love of Judaism and that they love their Jewish education, because as we see, and what the trends are, is that those people that are kind of forced into their Jewish education and they have to finish their bar mitzvah, they're not coming back. And we have to change the culture. We have to flip the messaging to have religious education be something joyful, welcoming, and something that they look forward to.
Rina, what do you think?
Yeah, same for us. Love of Judaism, obviously, it's what we want, right? But teaching love is hard. Like, you can't really teach love. It's something that is earned. And I feel that joy is where we put our focus in. We want our students to be enjoying what they're doing and be proud of their heritage. So all of our activities are based around things that gives you joy.
Joy is important. That's, I guess, that attracts kids more. They want to have fun.
Yes.
So that gets
It's not fun. I tell my staff, if it's not fun, if it's not something that the kids, it doesn't have to be fun like in a way that, oh my God, like every day is going to be that, but they need to have that enjoyable time, not feel like, oh, it's a dread to be there.
Yes. So Rina, you grew up in Israel, so you didn't go to like a religious school, as they do here, which is different. Emily, I assume you went to Hebrew school as a kid.
I did.
What was it like back then compared to now? Like, what's the biggest differences?
So when I was in religious school, I hated it. I really did. It wasn't enjoyable for me. And I was the kind of kid who made sure that if I wasn't enjoying it, that I let the teacher know. So I think that plays a big part in my view on what Jewish education needs to look like now, because I believe that I was the exception. I didn't enjoy it, and so I stuck around to change it. Whereas a lot of my peers didn't enjoy it, and so they're not connected anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, it was something that we were, as I hear from many other people around my age, we were forced to do it, right? But I had the benefit of having the love of Judaism at home. And so that's kind of what kept me connected.
And what was it like for you growing up in Israel? And obviously all the schools were Jewish schools per se, What was it like? Did you go to a religious school or to a secular school, public school?
Mamlachti lo dati, meaning that it's not religious, but obviously because it is a Jewish school, we received good formal Jewish education that included Torah and Torah Sheba'al Peh, all the subjects that, and I came from a religious home, so I've had the combination of the non-religious and religious education. But when I came here, I could see right away that there is such a big gap between what I was learning in school and what our students learn, and the realization that with such a minimal time we have with the students, the contact time we have, how could we even make that gap more obvious? Like, how can we keep up with what they should know and should not know, and how realistically it is to have them expect them to know more, right? Because it's just not there time-wise.
So speaking of that, of Israel, how do you keep the kids of all ages connected to Israel through Hebrew school?
So for me, it's like by grade, we make it age appropriate. We have it in the curriculum for all grades, and I work with each staff member to see in what way they can make Israel available to students in a way that they understand it. And like I mentioned before, you can't teach to love Israel just because that's what we want. It's not like that. It's more about, if you instill understanding and joy of and pride of who you are as a Jew, it helps you make the connection to the homeland. So each age group has a different activity to do, and we focus more on Israel in certain ages. Like in fourth grade, there's a whole year that's woven into visiting Israel in different cities and highlights. In 7th grade, we teach more about what happens after the Holocaust. So there's a whole section on a whole semester on Israel. So depending on the age where we are, and then Rabbi in the confirmation class is using a new curriculum that we just bought from Moving Tradition that he's using to help connect Israel in a way that's more meaningful without using the word love of Israel. Like, we're not using that language.
We realized that we needed to transform the way we were approaching Israel education. However, like with Rina's school, we are doing age-appropriate Israel education in all the grades. So we have our Shinshinim program so that they are working with every grade on learning about different parts and aspects of Israeli culture. But what we've learned is looking at different studies from Unpacked, iCenter, and ADL is that so many teens in high school, college, and even in middle school, some kids are encountering so many people questioning Israel or giving them bad information. And if we are only teaching love of Israel, we're not giving them the tools that they need in order to keep that love of Israel. So we have to do both. So in our 4th grade also, we have a curriculum where they're learning about basically love of Israel, culture, food, landmarks, the holiday celebrations as they're done in Israel, the biblical connections to Israel, and keeping in an age-appropriate way. We've now added into our 6th grade curriculum, the Moving Traditions curriculum, that I believe the same one that Kolami is using, and also a Stand With Us curriculum so that they can learn a little bit deeper than they're getting in 4th grade. They need to learn about modern Israeli history, the political system, cultural diversity. The approach that I heard recently at a conference that I really like is that education of Israel is inoculation, not indoctrination. We can't teach them just love Israel.
Yeah.
We have to teach them about the variety of viewpoints and even have them hear from the people of different backgrounds that live in Israel so that they can grapple with what's happening and come to their own decisions. They're not going to just spit out what we teach them, but have the ability to think through it. So that's a big part of what we're doing with our older students now.
Yeah, and I think that it's good that you're bringing actual Israelis that live there and have the experience there firsthand to talk about all these things with them, rather than someone, who read things somewhere and that's it, So that's great.
Correct. Yeah, and our new 6th grade teacher I'll mention, who's just absolutely fantastic, served as a lone soldier in Israel, so he's able to speak not as an Israeli per se, but from the perspective of living in Israel.
Yeah, that's great. So speaking of that, like all the challenges that we have now with kids, particularly in, I would say, high school, college, of course, with being pro-Israel is not very popular, and with everything that's going on since October 7th. How do you tackle those challenges, and what has been the most difficult challenge to tackle with the kids, especially the teenagers?
You want to go first, Rina?
Yeah, sure. So what we did is we created a education task force that put together a survey for youth. We call youth starting at 14, right, post B'nai Mitzvah, 14 through high school. And we want to hear from the teens themselves. What are their challenges, right? It's easy for us to create programs, but it doesn't always fit what the need is. And we realized that. So we took a step back and said, instead of creating programs, let's find out what the need is. So we've worked all summer on we call it a survey. It's a questionnaire of sorts that we are now training college students to do the interviews one-on-one with teens with the survey questions that we have put together to find out what is the need, how can we support our teens, what would they like to see, what would they like to see from their synagogue, how can we provide what they need for them. And we also asked them, like, one of my favorite questions was for them to imagine a world where everything is what they would like and what that looks like. Just to dream, because we really feel that it's missing. We always, as educators, we want what's best for our students, but sometimes we don't take the time to actually know what the best thing for them. So we are in the midst of trying to create that interview process to see what our students, our teens need from us, our youth. And then we're going to put a strategic planning in place to help make those a reality, whatever the need is.
Emily?
Sounds amazing right now. I love that you're able to talk to the teens and have them help with that. So there, in the last few years, wasn't a lot of teen education. So it's something that we're building right now. And so the group I've been able to connect with are really our Majachim. Last year, we did hold an event at Bethel along with Stand With Us and the ADL to try to convey some tools for the teenagers to work with in high school and on college campuses, combating anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism. And we also had a College 101 panel. But what we saw at that event was that it's a hard topic to get these teens to show up for. They really, it's a hard topic for them to think about. It's a hard topic for them to want to grapple with more than they already have to. So it's a topic that we have to start at a younger age, is what we were seeing, that they have to have those tools before they get to the high school and college campuses. So I mentioned that we are changing up our 6th grade curriculum starting this year to really focus on more Israel education. And another element that we've added this year, it's for grades 6, 7, and 8, but going forward, it will just be placed in the 6th grade, is a parent-child Israel trip. So that children at this age, before they get to high school, before they get to college, are able to see and taste and experience Israel. And, it'll include some of the really fun, delicious things that we have in every trip, go to the Kotel, go to the Dead Sea, a shuk tour, things like that. But we're also going to have them engaging with Israeli teenagers, visiting a middle school, have a meal with IDF soldiers, have the opportunity to really experience not just Israel, but Israelis.
Yes.
So that they can say when they hear, oh, this and that about Israelis, I'm sorry, no, I was there. I spoke to them. I met them. They're my friends. I know that what you're saying to me is not true. So that it's already inside of them before they're hearing the misinformation. And another element that we have in that trip is the opportunity for the parents of these children to really have the time to see it for themselves and have some adult education. While the kids have some time with teens, the adults will have some adult education. And we're really hoping that this will also have benefits of bonding the teens as a class, and that they will fall in love with Israel. Birthright has been really clear in their goals of helping Jewish young adults fall in love with each other, but our goal is for them to fall in love with Israel, and then later they can fall in love with each other.
Yeah, later when they go on Birthright.
That's right. They can still go. This is a different kind of trip.
Yes, exactly.
Emily, that sounds amazing to have a trip to Israel for parent and student. Wow.
It's great that you start that young. I think these years, like those young years, especially before high school and college, they see things differently. And I think that will help them shape their opinions and viewpoints later on. So it's really important that you're doing that.
Yeah, and I know, Esti, this podcast is going out soon, and we have space on the trip. So, middle schoolers and parents, let me know if you want to join the trip. We have lots of space.
Yes. So, with everything that's been going on since October 7th, and thankfully now all living hostages have been returned, and we're still waiting for 19 more deceased hostages to be recovered. How did you approach that, especially with the younger kids? And I know that I'm sure some parents had some reservations. They didn't want their little kids to know many details about what was going on. How did you approach that, Emily?
So when I came to Bethel, it was already almost a year after October 7th. So I came in and had heard from some parents, we only want our kids to hear the positive. And that was like the message that I had been hearing from all the parents that were talking to me.
Yeah.
So my approach when I came was focus on the positive, and that's how the year started, is we were focusing on the positive. We really did not talk too much about October 7th and the hostages. And, it was a learning experience for me, because partway through the year, about halfway through the year, I had some parents open up and say, this is really not doing our fifth graders any favors, because they are hearing about October 7th and about the hostages from their peers, and what they're hearing is wrong, and what they're hearing is anti-Israel, and we would much rather them hear from Jewish educators. And it was like a light bulb moment. Of course, that would be a better approach. But we really had to take a moment and say, how are we going to approach this in an age-appropriate way? That's absolutely what we should be doing for our middle schoolers. It's not necessarily what we should be doing for our younger students, because we want to also respect the fact that parents aren't ready to teach their young children as much when it comes to the scary stuff, right? I mean, if you're a day school child, it's one thing. If you're a supplementary school like we are, we have to be a little bit more gentle, because we only have them for a few hours a week, and we have to be careful with what we're saying. So we really didn't talk in the school above fourth grade too much about October 7th and the hostages. But starting in fourth grade, where they learned about Israel, they did have some education about it. And below that, we did keep it mostly Ahavat Yisrael, like love of Israel, and didn't talk too much about the current events.
If kids had some questions, would you answer them if the parents were okay with that? Because I know some kids, I know my daughter, I mean, obviously she knew everything from the beginning. Yeah. But I know some kids are more curious than others, and they're capable of, listening to this kind of things and taking it on.
Absolutely. I think that, I know that we did have some kids that came with questions, and if it was not a question that the whole class was ready to have answered, we're lucky that we have many educators in every grade, and the teachers were able to take the child aside, make sure that they had their questions answered. Even if it wasn't a question for the class, a child should always have the education that they're ready for.
Yeah. And what about you, Rina? How do you approach that?
Yeah, much like Emily, very carefully, one day at a time. In the beginning, we had more information and we were more forthcoming. I think, addressing the school, addressing age-appropriate conversation. We had like circles where each one of the educators took on a small group, and we did like one-on-one, or not one-on-one, but one educator per small age group conversation in circles to check on the kids, because everything was so horrifying, and of course nothing prepared us for this tragedy. We really, in the beginning, I feel almost crippled, like we didn't know how to approach. But we always made sure that our students knew that they could come to us, even if we're not addressing something, that they can check with us. I've had a couple of students come to my office and ask me some questions. I always try. Honesty is the best way. I was careful because some age groups are younger and they might not handle it. I even like from our history, stories like Pharaoh and Haman, right? Some kids get nightmares if you tell them about this bad guy and what he did. And so I learned over time to tame down the way I approach things, even though I'm trying to be honest. You can carefully choose your words. So I did that. And we, in our prayers every single week, we add the prayer for the hostages. We talk about the numbers. We have counted down along with the whole country, right? But we made it into a visual, like so people can actually see the numbers on our screen when we have prayers for Israel. We always end every assembly, every Sunday morning. Our assembly ends with the Star Spangled Banner and the Hatikvah. And in recent months, I've been talking to students, and we added, there used to be just the words in English and in Hebrew. We added transliteration and translation. What does it mean? The words were not, they sang them, they knew them, and they probably can sing them by heart by now because we do that every week. But I don't think it connects with words. So we have in recent months added not just a translation, but also an explanation. What does it mean when we are facing east? What is our direction? Like things that seem in general very clear to Jews, but I don't think our students have a much greater understanding. So adding these things to them really helped in doing that. And of course, additional program I mentioned earlier, but that we are doing for teens and parents, for parents alone, for grown-ups, that mainly faces of Zionism. We created a session for that, a series for our grown-ups as well, how to deal with that. So we just one day at a time, as I say.
Yeah. So like with everything that's going on with anti-Semitism now, because of everything that started on October 7th, what kind of questions do you get from kids about being a Jewish kid in the United States and, being, loving Israel, and maybe in some public schools, they're the only Jewish kids in their class or their grade. What kind of questions do you get from them?
So it's true. A lot of our students are the only Jewish children in their schools or in their grades. And so they're coming with the real need to connect with other Jewish children, but also they have a very, they have a multicultural view. So I heard a child and a sixth grader ask a couple weeks ago, I was sitting in the class while they asked their teacher, well, what if I grow up and I decide to marry somebody who's not Jewish? Does that make me not Jewish? What does that mean for my children? So they really are asking those future questions. And I'm also hearing questions about Israel, like, is it safe? As we're talking about our trip coming up, is it safe to go to Israel? And, what does it look like? Not just these landmark locations that they learn about from when they're little, not just like, what does the Kotel look like? But, what does it look like to go to Israel? Like, walk me through it, right? They want those details.
Rina?
Yeah. So similarly, I think our kids are looking for connections and what makes them Jewish. But the one question that really got me in the gut and was very hard to answer is like, why do they hate us? And
Yeah, I got this question from my daughter too.
it's so like it's so encompassing because of the fact that it's too big of a subject. But my answer, as always, is like fear makes people act irrationally. And hate is a very big motivator to put blame on something. So when people don't understand why things happen, they look for blame and they look for a scapegoat. And unfortunately, we are conveniently right there. And because of pictures and media and what's happening, in addition to this, just hearing news, there's always been wars, there's always been atrocities. Holocaust is a big example, but most of the world didn't know exactly what was happening. They knew things were happening, but they didn't know to what extent, or at least they hid behind not saying they didn't know. But nowadays, with so much media and so much coverage, it is very hard to not know and not to see all the terrible things that are happening. And I think that is playing against us. So my answer always is that you have to figure out what is true, like weed through the mud and figure out what is true and what is really, like, what is the base of all of this and where is it coming from. And if the older kids always, we go through what are the roots of anti-Semitism. We do that in 7th grade, as in the first semester. It's about teaching the Holocaust, and we start right there, right? We talked about anti-Semitism before any of October 7 issues happened. So there is no right answer or just one answer. There's a lot, and we try to answer it as it comes.
Yeah. And I think the question a lot of those kids have, why do they hate us? I don't think there's an actual definitive answer for that. Like, I think we will never know why, because I don't think the people that hate us know why they hate us.
No, they don't. It's a lot of misinformation, a lot of, like I said, judgment, preconceived notion. It's a complicated answer, right? There is no right answer. More than one, for sure.
So how would you advise parents to deal with kids who, especially the older kids, who try to distance themselves from Israel and from Judaism because their friends from high school or college told them they need to hate Israel, that it's bad, that there's a genocide, and all those big words that they use now? What would you tell those parents? How should they talk to their kids and make sure that they know the truth and facts?
It's hard once they get there. Once they get to that point, it's definitely more difficult. I'm hoping that, things like the education we're now putting into middle school, trips to Israel in middle school age will help prevent it. But for those that are already there, as hard as it is, I'd say take your kid to Israel. They need to see it. They need to see that it's just not true.
Yeah. That is important. Yeah. Rina, do you have any advice for those parents?
Yeah, I start by saying to them, know what your child's doing. What do they know? Talk to them. Have conversations so that you know where your child stands. What do they feel? How did they get their information? What are you trusting as a resource? And can you share it with your child? To reach out to your educators to find out what resources are available. Don't let your child go on social media and get their information from the wrong resources. Restrict access to social media. No, it's one of those. So I have a grandson who's 9-year-old, and he doesn't usually go on any social media, right? He has very limited access, yet even with YouTube, where he sometimes watches videos that are very age appropriate, but sometimes things pop right in while he's watching. And my daughter was horrified to find that there's been some things that show up even when it's innocent, like just to make sure that you don't let them watch unobserved by other people, and to restrict the access, but also like have conversation. I feel like we live such a busy life. We don't always have the sitting around the table for dinner is almost not existing in a lot of our families' busy life between going to enrichment and extracurricular activities. They don't always get to do that. So I tell, my advice is to always say, find a family time where you can have a conversation about anything and everything, and encourage your students, your children, to talk, to share what they're feeling. What are they anxious about? What makes them fear? What are kind of things that we can relieve for them? What can we do? Because there's so much anxiety and so much that the kids don't share. Certainly not with their parents, even though that's where the safe haven is supposed to be.
Yeah, and I would just also add on to that it's absolutely important that the family is having that education at home, but also see if there are opportunities for teen high school Jewish education where you are. At Bethel, we are starting a new teen education program, and part of that will have the opportunity for Israel education with one of our Shinjinim. And continuing education, Jewish education shouldn't stop at the bar mitzvah.
Yes, definitely.
It only starts.
That's right.
How do you make sure that they maintain that bond once they, reach those grades in middle school and high school, and they've gone through, they've gone to a religious school that teaches them about Israel and connects them to Israel? How do you suggest they maintain that bond with Israel and keep it through the rest of their lives?
It's hard because after high school, the parent has very little control over what their teenager is doing, right? So it has to be instilled young. But if you have a child in high school, going into college or in college, help them find the Hillel or the Chabad on campus, find those Jewish opportunities, find those Jewish education classes in college. And after that, you can, wherever they're living, be the nudge parent that shows them where the synagogues are. Help them do the research, because sometimes it's hard to do the research for yourself when you're young.
Yeah. You need to want to do the research.
That's right. That's right. But sometimes if it's right there and you have it, it's a little bit easier. Yeah. They'll see that, there's the, something for young adults or young families or whatever it is. And sometimes, and what I've seen is that it's the grandparent that is helping to bring the grandchild to religious school, and that connection is still through the grandparent. But then, the parent gets involved bit by bit, it keeps the connection.
Yeah, it's hard. I see, we see nowadays, like a lot of Jewish students in colleges that are like, oh, I went to Hebrew school as a kid, but they lied to me, and like all these things, especially all the Jewish Hollywood, people saying, oh, I was lied to as a Jewish kid in Hebrew school. So here is blah, 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 like all those lies that they learned on social media and from the people that have no idea what they're talking about.
Well, and that's why it's important to not just give them the happy Israel version, but also when they're a little bit older, when they're a teenager, to teach them the facts, the history, multiple viewpoints, and let them understand the full picture. They can't just think that everything is positive, because otherwise they will think they're lied to, because they are.
Yeah. So, you spoke about the trips to Israel of all ages. What are some places that you say would be the most important for kids to visit for the first time when they go to Israel for the first time? Even for parents who take their kids on their own without going through a religious school. What are the most important places that are must, for a kid at any age?
I tell you, Jerusalem. I feel Jerusalem has a mixture of everything. History, so much history if you walk toward the old city, and so much modern. if you just expand beyond the neighborhoods of the old city, there is the culture, the narratives of the different religions, who lives in Israel, who lives in Jerusalem, especially. But of course, it's not. You have all the excuse me, the modern that is part of Jerusalem, of Israel, is the Knesset, the governing. It's like it's called the Kiryah. It's like the area of all the buildings of the government buildings. So there's of course so much to see, and so many museums and sites that would make them have a good taste of Israel. But of course, that's just one of many, right? Like that's why I would have them start. But there's so much more. Emily, I'm sure you would add Tel Aviv, or tell me what else you would want to see.
So, I mean, definitely everything you just said with Jerusalem, the old, the new, the multicultural. I think it's really important to press on that they need to see that even though Israel is the Jewish homeland, how many different cultures are living happily and in prosperity in Israel. It's, I think, huge for them, especially with what we're seeing. And also, give them the fun experiences. They have to have the fun experiences. A few years ago, I planned a trip for my family, and we went. And I've also chaperoned Israel trips for middle schoolers and college students, different ages. And the things that they need to see, besides what we said, they need to experience the fact that, Hebrew is a living, breathing language, right? Like, let them go to the shuk, let them taste the foods, let them see Hebrew and English and Arabic on all the signs. But then also to visit Har Herzl, to see that there have been, unfortunately, so many deaths related to keeping Israel safe. And personally, I enjoy going to Sfat. I think it's so beautiful, and there are just so many different good places, so many different good places to go all over the country. North, south, east, west. I mean, depends how much time somebody has.
Yes, and if you want to have a lot of fun, go to the Israeli beaches. We have a lot of beautiful beaches. Definitely.
And if you have enough time to go down to Eilat, the beach there is gorgeous, and the underwater observatory, and lots of wonderful things.
Yeah, the coral in Eilat is gorgeous. If you go underwater, there's the Eilat Zoo, and has an underwater observatory. You can go down there and see all the fish, and it's beautiful. So definitely do that. So before we go, last question for you. So when the kids graduate religious school and move on to the next chapter in their lives, what do you hope they take with them from their experience?
I'd say pride of being who they are, being Jewish, not to be afraid to be Jewish. I know it's hard to be out loud a Jew nowadays. A lot of people hide their jewelry. They might not even wear them anymore because their fear of different reactions. So my hope is that students feel that they don't have to be afraid, that we still live in a free world, even though there are a lot of outwardly we see reactions, but we're not the same Jewish people that were in the Holocaust, where we just kind of said, we'll just keep down and hope that it'll go away. I think we have a lot smarter and more confident people growing up, and that they will know that they do not need to be fearful and to show fear. So be proud of who you are, and know that you're not alone. You're just not alone. You're not walking the world alone.
Emily?
Yeah, I love that, Rina. I think I definitely agree. It's about feeling not just that I'm being, schlepped to religious school, but that I am a Jew and I want to learn more about being a Jew. And just the joy and the inspiration of being Jewish.
Yeah. All right, ladies, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been a pleasure talking to you both.
Thank you.
And if your kids are not in Hebrew school and you want to learn more, you can contact us or contact Emily for Bethel, and get them in Hebrew school. My daughter started this year and she's loving it. So get them in Hebrew school, get them with the Jewish community. It's very important.
Absolutely. There are religious schools everywhere.
Yes. All right. Thank you all for listening. Until next time.